people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Two-time super lightweight champion Christina Linardatou posted this caption to her social media in reference to her upcoming rematch with Alicia Baumgardner. Let's say things how they truly are. When you fight a stronger fighter, you either run or hug. Alicia Baumgardner says she will knock me out. I don't remember being the one that was hugging at the last rounds, trying to survive. We all know that Christina is the only fighter that holds a victory over Alicia Baumgardner. But that victory was 4 or 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years later.
Alicia's picked up a trick or two. She's a more experienced fighter, an undisputed champion. It is true.
Dealing with a fighter that perhaps has more power than another. Some fighters are prone to clinching. Some fighters are prone to creating space and boxing off the back foot, moving lateral.
In order to deal with that power.
Christina Linardatou still has it. She is still one of the stronger punchers, anywhere in between 130 to 140 pounds. She is still that aggressive, explosive fighter, but is she everything that she used to be?
She's still more aggressive than most, stronger than most, and more athletic than most.
But is she what she was the night that she fought Alicia Baumgardner 5 years ago in Louisville, Kentucky?
I still think this fight is going to be competitive. I edge Alicia Baumgardner to win.
As rematches are often won by the fighter that can make the most adjustments, and out of these two, that really is Alicia more than Christina. Christina's your mid-range to inside pressure fighter, and those kinds of fighters, they don't change much in between fights.
Alicia is more adaptable, more malleable, and usually in rematch situations, that's the fighter that wins the rematch. The more adaptable fighter, the more adjustable fighter.
Usually.
We saw that yesterday with Leigh Wood and Mauricio Lara.
And I do feel like that will apply to this upcoming fight, this upcoming rematch with Alicia and Christina.
Alicia, who's approximately 5 or 6 years younger than Christina Linardatou, and she's peaking, whereas Christina...
Oh, Father Time's not on her side in all the ways that he's on Alicia's side. And this fight is taking place at 130 pounds. 130, super featherweight, whereas the last couple of years, Christina's been fighting 2 divisions north at super lightweight.
Their initial meeting was at this same weight 5 years ago. Their initial meeting was at super featherweight, but since then, Christina Linardatou moved up in weight, moved up to 140 pounds, became a champion there 2 times.
She hasn't made this weight since 2018.
So even though she's strong and explosive and aggressive, cutting down to 130 pounds may take something out of her.
That's important as it pertains to this fight. It's important because what troubled Alicia in reference to Christina, and what troubles any pure boxer in reference to any pressure fighter, is the ability of the pressure fighter to keep the pressure on.
Keep them working whilst working themselves. 5 years after their initial meeting, does Christina Linardatou still have the engine, the gas tank, to put pressure on Alicia?
Invade her space and wear her down, fluster her the way she did before.
I'm expecting a competitive fight.
But 5 years after their initial meeting, Christina being the older fighter in the fight, making a weight that she hasn't made in approximately 5 years, Christina, who has a penchant for loading up on all her punches, loading up on all her shots, and the energy.
That takes energy.
All signs seem to point to Christina potentially gassing out, potentially fading down the stretch. Christina, who initially was supposed to be fighting Michaela Mayer at lightweight, she'll be dropping down even further, down to super featherweight.
Because she's not a big woman, she can make the weight, but can she make the weight match fit with her cardio intact? Intact enough that she can do to Alicia what she did before.
Crowd her, push her around, fluster her.
Up until that point, Alicia Baumgardner had never seen a fighter like Christina Linardatou, who's just as strong and athletic and fast as she was way back when. 5 years later.
Is that still the case? Or is Alicia now where Christina was then.
Alicia is the one that's peaking.
If you're Alicia Baumgardner, the goal has to be creating space to set up Christina Linardatou for a counter right hand over the top.
Move and punch and set her up for something big. That's if you're Alicia. If you're Christina, you've got to try to do what you did before. Barrel forward, bobbing and weaving.
Big left hooks and big right hands over the top, pushing Alicia Baumgardner back.
You've got to try and outwork her because she's the house fighter.
You have to try your best to appear the busier fighter in the eyes of the judges the way you did before. Alicia Baumgardner being a pure boxer, an economic, mostly outside fighter, mostly outside jabber.
Got to get inside on her.
That's the goal, just like before.
Upon their initial meeting, it was Christina that had the stylistic advantage. Pressure fighters do tend to have a stylistic advantage over pure boxers, but in their second meeting,
The dichotomy changes a bit because the rule of thumb is, in rematch situations, usually the fighter that can make the most adjustments is the one that wins. That's Alicia.
I like Alicia to win, but I do think she's going to have to work for it.
There's no way you end up opposite the ring Christina Linardatou and end up in an easy fight, in store for an easy night. Christina is anything but easy.
Though enough time has passed and enough experience has been amassed on the part of Alicia Baumgardner, I think she's ready for this, and I think she's ready for revenge.
Leaning towards Alicia to win the second fight.
Well, you know, among the boxing people in the United States, Eddie is a joke. Really a joke, a clown. You know, he's taken the DAZN money and have a big campfire with the money.
That's not true. It never was. And even though it's a bit of a running gag and a running theme with Eddie Hearn and DAZN's critics, the reality of it is DAZN spent a lot of that money.
The money people always claim they burned.
They spent that money acquiring the sports rights to different sports in different territories. They didn't spend $1 billion or over $1 billion on boxing, just boxing alone.
You kidding me?
You can tell people this and show them the receipts, but they insist on being obtuse. They insist on being childish and petulant.
In many ways, that's what Bob Arum is being when he says that.
Even Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy on the same platform has outshone Eddie.
Outshone Eddie with what show, Bob? With what fight? What fight has Golden Boy Promotions put on since Canelo Alvarez left them that was bigger than, say, Taylor versus Serrano or Canelo versus Saunders, Canelo versus
Ryder?
We're at a point where that's just a bold-faced lie, where you have to outright lie about what's going on just to have something to say.
Golden Boy Promotions has been in a bad way for a while now, so I don't know what Bob's talking about.
What shows has Golden Boy put on that have been bigger than Matchroom's biggest shows? What shows?
So I don't take Eddie very seriously. But yeah, I don't take any promoter who's so braggadocious and really doesn't deliver seriously. But in Eddie's own mind, he's the greatest thing that ever lived.
Who do you reckon? Who do you reckon's winning? Who do you reckon's got the bigger future in boxing? Who do you prefer as a promoter? Anyway.
Braggadocious.
I like braggadocious. I am braggadocious. But I don't. What I can't understand is, what he's saying is that everybody in America thinks I'm a joke. I mean, I promote Canelo Alvarez. We've just done 50,000 in Guadalajara. I did Canelo Triple G last year. I did Canelo Bivol. We sold out Madison Square Garden with Katie Taylor. He's just done the biggest fight that he's done for years and years and years is Haney Lomachenko. Did 150,000 buys. Top Rank have no big fights. But I'm going to ask you a question. What was the last big fight Top Rank done? Who can answer that question?
Apart from Haney Loma.
Not even a big fight. Did 150,000 buys. But if you want to call Haney Loma a mega fight, right?
Undisputed title fight.
Okay. When was the last one before that?
Bob Arum is very disingenuous when it comes to how Eddie is doing in the American market. A lot of people are disingenuous when it comes to that. They can't admit that so far, this year alone, Matchroom has put on at least one show bigger than any show Top Rank has put on. Top Rank's biggest show this year was, in fact, Haney versus Lomachenko, but that only sold in between 150 and 200,000 pay-per-view buys. Canelo versus Ryder is estimated to have done better than that.
I want to say in the last 2 years, maybe 2.5.
Matchroom has consistently put on bigger shows than both Top Rank and the PBC, though the PBC is set to have a very big year.
They got off to a good start with that Gervonta Davis Davis versus Ryan Garcia fight.
Over 1 million pay-per-views sold, and whatever they end up selling with Crawford versus Spence and Canelo versus Benavidez, potentially.
PBC might have an even better year this year than everybody else.
Though so far in the last 2 years, you must consider also what shows Matchroom has put on.
What was the biggest fight the PBC put on last year? What was Top Rank's?
Nothing that the PBC did last year was bigger than the Canelo versus Golovkin trilogy. That sold approximately 1 million pay-per-view buys.
Nothing that Top Rank did was bigger either. Not last year.
Nothing that Top Rank or the PBC did the year before that was bigger than Canelo versus Saunders. They broke the indoor attendance record in 2021 with that fight.
Wasn't a fight that was in Saudi. That wasn't a fight that was in Britain. That was a fight that was right here in the US of A, where both Top Rank and the PBC operate.
Not that Matchroom is limited to just operating in the American market. They're not. They operate all over the world, anywhere from America to the UK to Australia.
To say that Eddie Hearn ain't having no success in the American market is quite disingenuous.
Eddie Hearn, who says Top Rank are completely finished. ESPN contract is gone.
That's the word around the campfire, that ESPN won't renew.
Hearn needled Arum by insisting that the upcoming title fight between WBO 140-pound titleist Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez that Arum will promote was currently underperforming at the box office. The fight will take place at the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden in New York, June 10th. At the moment, we're stuck on this. You've got Teofimo Lopez against Josh Taylor at the theater in Madison Square Garden, and they can't even sell that out. It's got 4,000 seats. Top Rank are completely finished. Bob Arum calls me a joke. Braggadocious. It's dumb. Over. End of story. ESPN contract? Gone.
Is that possible?
Top Rank has been delivering the ESPN platform decent numbers with boxing matches, some more so than others, but they've been doing all right, at least better than the PBC has been doing on Showtime, though it is still possible.
That ESPN won't renew?
According to Eddie Hearn, they won't. According to him, they might not. Does he know something that we don't know?
He might.
The truth is that Eddie Hearn is doing all right in the American market. The cash cow of boxing, the face of the sport in this part of the world, made a conscious decision to let Eddie Hearn promote his fights because he feels he's the best man for the job. He feels he's the best promoter in the world. Canelo Alvarez, who made the Forbes list, one of only 2 boxers.
Just him and Anthony Joshua. None of those Top Rank guys and none of those PBC fighters.
Doesn't that speak to the success and ability of Matchroom to promote shows that the only 2 boxers that made the Forbes list both happened to fight under the Matchroom banner?
Top 2 earners in men's boxing and the top earning woman boxer in Katie Taylor. They all fight under the Matchroom banner.
But you're telling me that this guy doesn't know what he's doing and you do.
That Golden Boy Promotions is bringing more eyes to the DAZN platform than he is. With what fight?
His prize stallion at light heavyweight just got smacked up by a Matchroom fighter. His prize stallion in between lightweight and super lightweight just got stopped over there on Showtime.
Ryan Garcia.
Just calling a spade a spade. To say that Eddie Hearn isn't having success in the American market, that he's a joke, I don't think that's exactly accurate. In fact, I think most of the promoters in America are angry at how much success he's having. When DAZN debuted in this country, they wanted to create imbalance and disrupt the market for their competitors. They've done that.
They've made their jobs harder, and they've only grown since then.
They've put on some very, very big shows the last 2 years. This year, it looks like PBC.
Looks like they're gonna have a good year.
Perhaps the best year they've had in years. Right behind them, I'd say, is Matchroom, and at the bottom is Top Rank.
What's the biggest fight Top Rank has planned?
It's a common sense argument.
I think it is.
One promotional outfit is limited to operating in the American market, and the other outfit is a global outfit that caters to several different markets in several different countries. They've already put on many big fights, in this country included.
To do what Matchroom is doing on an international stage, Top Rank must enlist the aid of Yvonne Michel and Eye of the Tiger Management, Queensbury in the UK.
They've got to collaborate with all these other promoters, whereas Matchroom is Matchroom. Matchroom in the UK is Matchroom in the USA, in Australia,
in Saudi. It's Matchroom.
Bob Arum has yet to do anything over there in Saudi, and they've got money to play, money to spend.
So let's just be honest here.
Eddie ain't doing half bad for himself in the American market, and on a global stage,
you guys can't compete because you're not operating on that level.
If what he's saying is true, that ESPN won't renew, that spells trouble in paradise for Top Rank. Where will they go? Finally, in men's featherweight news, on the heels of his successful title defense in Ireland, IBF champion Luis Alberto Lopez says, "I'm coming for all the champions. I want all their belts.
There are currently 4 reigning champions in the men's featherweight division. Luis Lopez is just one among them.
He was quoted as saying, "I hope all the world champions at featherweight are ready for Bernardo Lopez. I'm coming for all of them. I want all their belts, one by one. I'm taking all their belts with me to Mexico. It was an excellent atmosphere to fight in. The energy was amazing. The boxing fans from Ireland have treated me very well, so I'm glad Mick and I could give them a great fight. I wish the best of luck to Conlon moving forward, and I hope he recovers and comes back very soon."
Luis Lopez, who's being dubbed the featherweight division's road warrior, traveling champion,
Won the IBF title, the vacant IBF title, opposite the ring former champion Josh Warrington on the road. Defended the title on the road this past weekend against Ireland's own Olympian Mick Conlon.
He's now looking to unify. There are 4 champions in the men's featherweight division. Luis Lopez holding the IBF, Leigh Wood holding the WBA, Ray Vargas holding the WBC,
Riboflavin Ramirez.
Robeisy Ramirez.
Rotisserie has the WBO. Luis Lopez and Rotisserie Ramirez are on the same side of the street. They both fight under the top-ranked banner. Ray Vargas, he's over there at the PBC, and Leigh Wood, he's with Matchroom.
You would expect that because 2 of the 4 champions at this weight fight under the same banner, that's the natural fight to make because that's the easiest fight to make. But Luis Lopez, he seems to have other plans. He says, tell Eddie Hearn that Leigh Wood is next.
Leigh Wood, who was in action this past weekend in the UK, opposite the ring Mauricio Lara for the second time, now a 2-time featherweight champion, 2-time WBA champion. It seems that Luis Lopez mentioned him by name, and he's got Leigh Wood in his crosshairs. How realistic is this fight?
I'll say that a fight with Leigh Wood, a unification match, well, it's got more of a profile than, say, a unification match with Robeisy Ramirez, a talented boxer and Olympian, but not a guy with a big profile in America.
I think that's the reason that Luis Lopez has mentioned him by name, as opposed to the other 2 champions at this weight. He mentions Leigh Wood. Good attendance for Leigh Wood's fight with Mauricio Lara this weekend.
That's not a coincidence.
Seems that Luis Lopez would like to have an extended stay across the pond, across the Atlantic Ocean. In truth, I don't blame him. You could give Luis Lopez reasonable odds to beat Leigh Wood. You could.
The problem is politics.
The problem is a fight like that would be contingent upon Bob Arum loaning out one of his champions to Eddie Hearn, and I don't think he's in a hurry to do that. Here in America, Luis Lopez don't draw how Leigh Wood draws.
You saw the size of that crowd in Manchester.
Fiscally, it wouldn't make sense for Leigh Wood to come to America to face Luis Lopez on a top-ranked show because Luis Lopez don't got the same drawing power in America that Leigh Wood has in, say, Manchester, the United Kingdom.
It's the ideal place for a fight like that.
Do the fight where it generates the most money. No. In all likelihood, Luis Lopez will end up unifying with Robeisy Ramirez, and Leigh Wood,
He'll likely defend the title against Josh Warrington in a money fight.
could do a lot of business with that fight in the United Kingdom. That's reality, where Leigh Wood has more marquee value than both Luis Lopez and Robeisy Ramirez in America.
Like it or lump it.
What's likelier to happen than not.